What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Singularity podcast, only single player's official podcast for single player topics. I'm your host, J. Scott Brown, but I'm joined by a couple other lovely single player lads, and one actually no lassie. I said it this week to make sure, because you called me out in it last week, Josh. But we have some lads here. Josh Atkinson, Ian Jones. What is going on?
Not much. It's a sunny Sunday morning somewhere.
Yeah, we are one trooper down this week. Alexis was she at Disney World or some shit?
Yeah, she's in Florida.
Oh my god. Lame. No, I'm extremely jealous, but whatever. Listen, we got some topics to talk about the video games. We got some after game DLC support. Kind of a discussion it's pretty general, but we'll jump to all areas, I think, because it's just such a big topic, the whole idea of this new generation of gaming where you can have so much after game support in terms of content, updates, patches, and all that good stuff. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about Blizzard's storytelling in a very general sense, considering the fact that Legacy of the Void is very much close to coming out now. I think the date was November 14th, but it's probably wrong. It's around there somewhere, and that cinematic came out, which was badass. So, of course, we will talk about it as well. All the Blizzard stuff, we'll touch on that a bit later on the show. But guys, after DLC game support, what are we thinking of here, Josh? This was your kind of topic. You brought it up at least. Do you have any? Well, I mean, if you want to introduce it a little bit, like where are we starting from here? Set the tone. If we're on a romantic date, you can choose the music.
I've got to be the conversation starter on our romantic date.
Absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
I thought you were the gentleman. Okay, I see.
Make a move, Josh.
Chivalry is dead.
Well, I mean, one thing that kind of, with this whole thing with DLC now in the modern era of gaming, that kind of started it all, in my opinion, is kind of with like Mass Effect 3. You know how, was it Mass Effect 3 or Mass Effect 2 when at the end of the game it said, you can then follow the legacy of Shepard by buying the DLC right after the game finished? And now there are games like, say, Arkham Knight, which they kind of end on a little bit of a cliffhanger, but now they've revealed that the story will in some way continue through, I think it's called Infamy DLC, where basically, potentially this new Batman, spoilers, is going to be taking down all these really, like, iconic villains in his, that missed out in the main story and stuff. And so it's this whole thing of games don't feel very finished now because you're getting your package, but then they're going, but then if you want to see how the story really goes, this is when the DLC comes in. And it's kind of that whole thing with Metal Gear Solid 2 where supposedly the actual ending isn't in the game. So it's like, are they going to actually finish the game through DLC as well? Why are all my little bits of story? And, where have they gone? But at the same time as well, another game that did this really bad, which was a major criminal of this. Have you ever played Azura's Wrath?
No, I never did.
You played Azura's Wrath? You ever heard of that game? That was the one where it was like this Buddhist warrior guy who had like 8 arms and he was always really angry and he was like punching everything like really quickly, like Dragon Ball Z style. It was a really popular game about 3 years ago. But in that game, you finish it, it's like episodic, you finish it, then you have to buy the ending. You don't see the ending, you have to buy the ending. And
this is probably
what games are doing. Why are they doing this now?
Well, bottom line, like the game is a product. All the games are products, and there is a market. They're trying to make as much money as they can. I mean, this is where that whole video games as art debate comes in, because it's like some games are a very consistent package. You look at something like, any of the Witcher games. We're just gonna bring them up again and again and again.
Oh my god, dude, go ahead.
But you see a consistent vision there, and that's not the only game that's like that. There's a lot of games that are just really tight and really focused, and a lot of the time they'll give you the after launch support, they'll give you expansions, they'll give you DLC, but it won't be this kind of like nickel and diming kind of thing. And it comes down to like how strong was the vision behind the game that the studio was willing to put forward, how much of it is a passion project, or how much of it is we're making a product, we're trying to get as much cash from the consumer as we can get. And they all fall somewhere in that spectrum. And
I mean, for sure. But I get what you're saying, the whole bottom line and product and all that good corporate stuff. But I feel like there certainly is that you still have to keep in mind, like, let's not go crazy, right? Like, especially what Square Enix are doing with the next Hitman. where if you're unaware, basically it's coming out at the end of this year. I think it's like December 8th. And it's dropping for digital purchase. You can buy the game, but it's not finished. Basically, what they've said is that they're just going to finish it later through updates. It's free. You don't have to pay for the ending. And then when their ending actually gets updated into the game, the retail release will come out back, a bit midway through 2016. So the idea of that is like, well, it's very clear what they're doing. They're kind of exploiting the fact that that is the most lucrative time to release your game, while simultaneously not having the game actually ready for release.
Well, and they're minimizing risk.
Isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I was
I
gonna
mean,
say
they definitely are. Yeah.
With Hitman, I mean, isn't that supposed to be when they revealed it? It was supposed to be about how it's supposed to be him in his prime, but then they were kind of taking advantage of the very popular, was it called contracts in Hitman Absolution, that like multiplayer thing, where you were given the levels, but then you had to try and do the hits like in a different way, and then you challenge your friends and things. And so they kind of ended up thinking, oh, we could make a game out of that. We could like make like not even like a random level generator, but like build up a level and then putting a target in it and then seeing how well people do, and then that could be the game, and then just keep releasing those continuously. So I mean, it's kind of like an open-ended. That's the thing. It's not like a level generator, but like a mission generator in a way, and then
Kinda,
it just
yeah.
goes on.
It
It's
would
not a
basically-
story, but it's
Yeah.
his career in a way.
It would be like they take everybody's favorite part of The Witcher 3, which were those Witcher contracts, and they just make a game where they keep updating it with contracts, like again and again and again.
And on that point, what you said, they're trying to sell a product. Well, it's like at this point, you have to kind of question, are they? It's this whole idea of like, I guess, transforming a game into a service, because ideally that as a system, as an idea of delivering content is probably more lucrative. You have a sustained
It is.
platform to deliver constant content and constant revenue. So that's like ideally the way you would want to do that. I feel like the way EA are transforming like FIFA and all that good stuff, that they're very much making it a instead of this yearly thing, like this more of a platform, especially or a service, I should say, especially with what they do with EA Access. And it seems like that seems to be definitely a core model that's going that's becoming at least definitely a lot more popular. I guess the question is, where do we differentiate between a game that I can I can drive to my local store, pick it up, and it's in a disc and I can play it, as opposed to just buying a $10 or getting this free service thing that I have to just like pay $20 a month or something to just play my games. Like, I don't know.
I could
Where's that
easily
line?
see like something like Call of Duty a couple years down the road being like 10, 15 bucks a month. You just bought.
They already tried to do something like that with Call of Duty Elite. Do you remember that?
I remember that, but people weren't ready. But like, I think they're gonna be. Like, you look at the way Adobe does their software with the Creative Cloud. Like, because it's no longer a one-off download, the piracy rates have plummeted. You just pay $50 a month, and you always have access to Adobe products. Like, people are totally fine with it because it's a software thing. And I think it's going to move into gaming slowly but surely, like with these, especially with things that are annualized and there's just constant support for them. It just kind of makes sense. Those people on the other end are always fucking working on your game. That's what they do year round. They just keep working on this thing, and you pay them because you want access to it. So in that sort of model where they're constantly churning out content and updating the game, when it is a service, it kind of makes sense, but not for.
I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, I certainly do see where you're coming from again. Okay, I guess to recenter the discussion though, like where are we on like just DLC in general? Because when we think about DLC, I mean, sure, it can evolve into this whole other different, perhaps better system, or just different entirely in terms of the positives and the negatives, in terms of like a service. But in terms of just DLC, in the idea that after a game's release, it does serve a purpose and tries to expand a game's content. The idea of that is obviously certainly something that's pretty novel, and that's something that's recent, that like in the last 10 years obviously it's evolved. But how much do we is the kind of trade off there that we get that, and we are happy at the fact that we do get all this awesome DLC after launch and all that good stuff, and simultaneously the trade off there is, well, now we have to deal with pre-order DLC, day one DLC, on disc DLC, and also just games that sometimes release in a state that wouldn't be considered finished. Go back 5 or 6 years because publishers just kind of assume they can patch, and we're in a bit of a murky sort of territory. So I guess, what are your guys' opinions on that specifically?
I mean, one that's quite a strong, not, I wouldn't class it as an offender maybe, but like one that's trying to go down that route is Digital Extremes with Warframe. I mean, that started out as like a base platform kind of thing, as a alpha, then it went through beta. Everyone kind of like has followed it through there, and then what they've done is just constantly add kind of like expansions and DLC and quests and stuff for the user to enjoy. But then they put like, they kind of like nickel and dime you by having things like buying platinum packs for you to get your guns and your new weapons and stuff if you want them really quickly, but you can still work for them slowly and do the grind. But it's kind of cool that there are kind of like developers out there that aren't trying to take advantage of the system in a way, if that makes sense, but are kind of like doing this whole thing where it is like this DLC platform that is around now that we're all seeing, but then using that to kind of like expand their game, their universe and their package and the world that we're trying to play in, but not in a way that is, exploitive, if that makes sense. So Digital Extremes are doing that, from what I know. I don't know if any of you guys have played it recently, but it's quite a big game now.
Not recently, but I did see the rise, or I think I played it when it was in beta, and it didn't immediately captivate me. It was sort of like one of those horde mode, kind of like you run through and just sort of wave out the wave of enemy. But I could see, I know why people like it.
I mean, that's the funny thing, because like originally it was just that you ended up just going down. I think it was like assassinate this monster at the end of the tunnel, and then it was kind of like strike missions in Destiny where you kind of just do that and then you repeat. But then what they've done is they've added things like multiplayer. So there's actually competitive multiplayer now where, say, if you're in, well, this is the funny thing because it's actually quite in depth, which it's also partially inspired by.
Imagine because of the abilities and the guns and stuff like that. Like all your characters are pretty complex.
It's this thing though that because they've actually put this like really in-depth clan system into the game. So like, have you ever played EVE Online or heard of EVE Online?
I mean, yeah,
corporations
all the time, but never played.
Yeah.
It's too complex for me.
So what they've ended up doing is like in EVE Online, say you could have like two giant clan corporations fighting each other, and you always see these videos and news articles on YouTube or on any kind of site where it's like, oh, these 29,000 ships came and clashed and blew each other up.
Right, yeah, the biggest EVE Online battle yet.
Yeah. And then this corporation that's been around for 10 years has now gone broke and all this stuff. Now they've actually put that in Warframe, I mean, but as free DLC. And so what you can do is you can have your clan, you build it up, you have this massive dojo, you can actually build extra parts to it, have this amazing sprawling tomb of different rooms and training facilities and stuff like that. But then people can now break into them and destroy them, and it's this kind of like in-depth thing. But usually you'd get that, you'd have to pay for it,
Yeah,
and this is like now we're seeing these kind of like it's free to play, but free to play games are they're kind of becoming better. It's kind of like what MMOs used to be, but now they're actually free.
I mean, I know that we talk about single player games, but like Warframe, you look at something like that, I think League of Legends can be thrown in there for not really trying to nickel and dime their players too much. And you can see developers. No, I mean I play that game, and
I mean the entire thing of that game is working towards currency just to buy characters. There's no other thing to do in that game.
There's no other thing to do in that game, but the I guess the point is that you never really need to. They're so invested in making that game balanced and working on it and improving it and everything like that, that the free roster that comes around every week is completely viable. Nobody ever needs to go beyond it. So, everybody can play that game at a certain level. Now, once you get up to the higher ranks, like gold and beyond, like you're probably going to sink some cash into it because you want like runes and shit like that. But like Warframe, League of Legends, there's other like really great examples
Yeah,
of
yeah.
freemium.
Well, I feel like certainly though, if you throw free to play into the mix, I mean, I definitely was thinking more of kind of when we're talking AAA and stuff like that. But I mean,
Okay.
it's certainly relevant the free to play sort of sphere. But I feel like that certainly is a different context. I mean, when you're talking about the idea of, I guess, consumer entitlement, especially from the point of view of especially from like day one DLC and stuff like that, there is a general reflexive negative reaction just
Oh,
because there is such a thing as consumer entitlement, and that kind of, I
Yeah.
guess, is exponentially grown depending on how much what the game is and how much you pay for it or whatever. And with free to play games, you can certainly get away with certain practices that would just be inconceivable in any like game that you pay $60 for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think Warframe especially. I mean, I haven't played it too recently, but back when I did, I mean, that had some of the most egregious
oh
fucking
yeah.
like
It was
in-game
painful.
currency, like nickel and diming of
They
any game
still
I've
do
ever
it.
played.
There is still parts of that game which are still terrible. Like I can't
Yeah,
remember what it's
yeah,
called. It's there's this package that you can pay for, which is I think about 64.99, and it's like you
Holy
get like a
hell.
prime. It's called the Prime package, I think, and basically you get the exclusive limited edition version of a character. And it's like they're all like pimped out in gold and nice. It literally they look like the Snoop Dogg of space for each character. But then you get like a nice like package of like the in-game currency and stuff like that. But you have to pay around £50 just for that.
That's a
Or
lot
they'll
of
say,
cash.
"Oh, well, yeah," and then it's one of those things where it's like, "Oh, you don't want to do that? Well, play 100 hours of our game, then maybe you'll get
yeah,
one of the pieces of that content." So it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
cheeky. It's like
That-
maybe people want to legitly try and get this and have fun at the same time. Like I tried myself, and I gave up halfway through trying to just get the Warframe built because after you've actually got all the pieces, you still have to. It does that thing, like in Phantom Pain, where if you're trying to research a piece of tech and it says you must wait an hour, say, you actually have to do that, but it's even longer. Sometimes it's a week long just to get
mm,
that piece after you've spent all that time grinding for it. And then they
yeah,
go,
yeah.
but if you use some of our in game currency for £15, then you could have that now. It's
Wink,
like,
wink, nudge,
yeah, it's
nudge.
like,
Yeah.
bugger
Exactly, yeah.
off. Just go away.
No, I think that's definitely true. But again, I mean, when you are talking free to play, perhaps the Farmville style of things is a little more palatable.
Yeah.
But that's I think that's the fundamental question here, because like you take a game like the Phantom Pain or more recently stuff like Mortal Kombat X as well had the easy fatalities, and it's like people definitely again have this knee jerk reaction. I think rightfully so, because there's something to be said about because that is a very conscious thing that the developers of Warframe do, very very much that the developers of any free to play game do, that want you to buy their currency. There's a purposeful making the game and the progression deliberately slower, more egregious, just more grindy in general, because the point is you're supposed to be more implored to buy that currency. And so when there is some degree of microtransactions or perhaps DLC that would be considered to be what the consumer should be entitled to, I guess there is a question of, well, how much is this really obstructing on what the experience could have been or should have been or whatever. I think it is an interesting question. Metal Gear Solid 5 is the most recent one to kind of do this, but I guess I really haven't seen too much discussion, so I assume this wasn't a big drama. I haven't actually unlocked the multiplayer yet, so I don't know how much of
No, I haven't
a big
either.
thing it is, but basically you could buy in-game currency to
Mother
expand
base
your
points or something?
to mother base, yeah, and stuff like that. So it would make your mother base a lot more viable online against others that would invade it and stuff like that. And so it's like, okay, well, that's interesting, but I don't know how much. I guess you can make an argument there that it didn't really impact the single player experience at all, so therefore, okay, no one really cares. But then, isn't the multiplayer
Yeah.
a core component there? I don't know. There's definitely an interesting question of events. I'm not really sure.
Well, play the devil's advocate, like especially with Metal Gear Solid 5, because that's a really relevant case.
Hmm.
I think I remember reading like Kojima was outed in large part due to the game being so damn expensive. And he wanted to keep putting content in the game. He wanted to keep making more cutscenes, more story elements, all this stuff. And Konami was like, "No, bro. Like the game, like the bill for the game is already too high." So, and that raises an important point about this kind of thing. Like we have this entitlement because we used to expect games to be complete, but that was back when games were a lot simpler and frankly a lot cheaper to make. And now it's like these games are getting so complex and they're so expensive and they take so much time. If a developer wants to put little microtransaction in the game to like try to make some money off of it, I mean, I can see it. Like I can sort of see justifying it from that argument. Now, do I like it? No, I actually kind of hate it. Like personally, when I see it, I have that reaction in me because I have that entitlement. I'm like, what the fuck? Get out of my game.
It's one of those issues though where it's the developer or the publisher needs to think more cleverly about actually putting microtransactions in a way that it is a useful microtransaction that isn't just them taking something out of the game and charging for it. Because like
Right.
I have
Yeah.
not seen a microtransaction where I've gone, oh, that's kind of clever. This is something that might actually be useful to my adventure. Instead of, couldn't I have just got that in the game that I just paid for? Like
Right.
with the whole Jay ended up mentioning about Mortal Kombat and stuff, like with the whole
Yeah.
fatalities where you had to like you could pay for 5 free fatalities. I believe that they actually put easy fatalities in the game before, so they literally just took out a feature and went, we could make them pay for that.
Yeah, and that's like the definition of a nickel and diming. Um, and if you look at
So it's
something like,
like So it's like
yeah,
one of
go
those
ahead.
things though where they could like I mean can you think of a good microtransaction
No.
like item that you could buy? Because I can't, because you'd still
Well,
think, well, can I just get it in the game?
some of the best like free to play experiences out there that do microtransactions, they're not focused on gameplay. It's not pay to win. It's all cosmetic. You look at Valve stuff with the hats,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
But then like think about this: if Half-Life 3 came out tomorrow and they put a bunch of hats in the game that you could put on Gordon and Alex and everybody else, and you could pay money for it, people would probably be pissed about that. It's fine in Team Fortress 2, but take it out of my single player game. So
Yeah.
there's some issue there, and I'm not exactly sure like what it is, but it's
Yeah, I mean the fundamental kind of thing there is that you definitely can't have microtransactions in a single player game that is non-cosmetic. I mean, it's definitely it's difficult, and even if it doesn't really have too much of an impact on the experience, there's just so much murky ground there to challenge the ethics of that and the validity of putting it in there. I mean, like, especially considering if it's a AAA experience, it's like you're going to be hard to get away with that, especially from the publisher perspective. It's usually like, especially with Dead Space 3, where it had the whole like crafting stuff going on. It's like that very much. It's like I can't, as a gamer, as a consumer, I can't really trust you to not make the progression somehow a little bit more grindy, because you have a vested interest now in making me wanting to buy a microtransaction and stuff like that.
Right.
If it's cosmetics, I can definitely see there's definitely some room for that. Valve does it so excellently with
but not in their single
crates
player
and-
stuff, like the infamous
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
horse
yeah,
armor from Oblivion. That's like the
yeah,
that's the standard go to like shitty DLC thing. And that I think, yeah, like DLC for single player games, give me several hours of more adventures, like the Skyrim DLC, the one that takes you to wherever, Dragonborn Island or Solstheim. That was pretty good. It was like 10 hours maybe of extra stuff if you fulfilled everything. And The Witcher 3 is going to do the same thing. They gave you a bunch of cosmetic shit in the free DLC, and then they're saying, okay, we're giving you these big expansion packs. That's the kind of DLC that really like can win me over personally, and I think people sort of go in at a
yeah.
higher rate.
I mean, yeah, and again, I mean, what you were saying before about like, at the end of the day, these companies do need to make money, absolutely. But it's hard, definitely, to. I know you were just playing devil's advocate, but it is hard to go out and bat for them, especially since it more often than not, it seems like about making the most money, not necessarily about making some money.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
investing that into the games and making them games better. It's just about kind of maximizing
Let's
capital,
not pretend
especially
we live in a world where they're not fucking greedy. 'Cause
yeah,
they
yeah,
are.
yeah, exactly, and especially in the case of CD Projekt Red, it's like it's so hard to trying to go and bat for EA or Ubi when we have CD Projekt Red like just killing it, putting out a massive RPG that they made over 3 years and
Just
they've
slaying
made
it.
bank.
Just-
Oh man, I mean it's hard not to suck them off like every week, but
Oh my
I
goodness.
mean, listen, it's just they definitely captured something there
Yeah,
in
they're
terms
just the
of
standard bearer of like generating
yeah,
goodwill right now. Like
yeah,
they're
for
the
sure.
best.
It's true, and they do deserve it. Obviously, you still got to be on your toes a little bit, but they have deserved that goodwill because they have made no effort to really. It's about that genuine approach to your audience. I mean, it's very simple, and you know, just in terms of a AAA sort of space, that's certainly a bit of a foreign thing now. And that might be me being a bit tinfoil hat on, but for the most part, I do feel like from the big publishers anyway, it is more often than not a case of you know, these marketing antics and stuff like that,
Right.
and less of a focus on we made a great game and we just want you to get the value from that game, and that's where the focus I feel really should be. That's kind of like the point there. But I guess to transition the discussion a little bit, part of a symptom of the DLC kind of pre-order culture that we're kind of living in right now, especially with the after game support and stuff like that. Part of a symptom of that is what we call now season passes. Now, I have a pretty firm position on this, but I'm interested to hear you guys. Have you guys thought about the season pass? Do you guys buy season passes? What do you guys kind of stand on that?
Depends on that's the thing. It depends on the main game. Like if I really enjoy the main experience, and I kind of go, you know what, you've won me over. You've got my pack, yeah, my wallet, my my pounds. But like for example, Far Cry 4, which is the last one, right? I mean, I played that
Mm-hmm.
entire thing and I loved it. I thought this is a really good game. I ended up buying the season pass, and I wanted to see what else they could bring me next. Another I'm trying to think of another one that was kind of like that. I mean, say Dragon Age, like that as well. I was kind of like, I really enjoyed this experience. You gave me the story I wanted. It ended in a way that I was happy with. I will, if you've got more story to give me, I will buy your season pass. But then I remember with things like Assassin's Creed, where it was like, they actually announce their extra pieces before the game even comes out. So
Yep,
like
yep.
they've got the thing recently, which was the Jack the Ripper DLC, which was announced at TGF. Yes, sorry, and they ended up going, "This is coming out only for season pass holders," and it's like. But you haven't let me play your game yet. I don't even know if
Yeah,
it's
we don't know if
good.
it's good. Yeah.
Mm.
You're already kind of like so assured that of my devotion to actually buy this content that you've ended up putting money into, like
Yeah.
generally you make the
Hubris.
season pass as kind of a way of saying you buy my game, that money that you put into my game will then go to more content for the game that we've all put money into and want to love. And so it's this kind of like weird thing of depending on who's going to do it right. Because Ubisoft aren't doing it right, but again, well, that's the weird thing though, because Ubisoft did Far Cry. So it's like, what happened there? They did really well with that, but then they fudged up with Assassins.
Well, Ubisoft is sort of there's a lot of strata. They're all over the place. They have studios all over the world, and they have different people working on different games. So the quality control is not across the board. And Assassin's Creed is a prime example of something that's just tanked like repeatedly and tricked
Yeah.
consumers again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was like a thing as well, seeing that I was thinking and noticing recently when playing. I'm going to bring up Destiny. I'm sorry about this, but
Uh-oh.
I ended up playing some of the Taken King, and some of the areas you go to were originally locked off in the original game, and they obviously brought out these expansion passes that you could buy, and then you obviously continue the adventure, but then. There's like this one where, what's it called? I don't know, you probably remember this, Jay. You know one of those original strikes where you have to fight the giant eyeball robot thing? It's
Mm-hmm.
called like
Mm-hmm.
Devil's Lair or something. In
Yep.
Taken King, there is a door behind Devil's Lair, whatever he's called. I think he's just called Devil, maybe. And you actually go through that door in Taken King. And I always kept wondering, what is behind that door while playing the main game? There is something behind there, and there is some reason why that
Not
door is
yet.
sitting in front of me. It's like, not yet though, but if you buy the expansion pass, you'll find out. And so all this time, a lot of these companies now are making their game knowing what that content is going to be in the future.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that season
Yeah.
pass isn't even for support. It's just there to kind of make you think, oh well, you want a little bit more of the game that's already there. Well, you've got to pay for it.
Yeah,
It's that thing again of
that's
nickel and diming, continuing it.
exactly. I mean, that's pretty much my position on it as well. I mean, I share the kind of the same thing as DLC. As an ideology, it's so It's so great, and I feel like just in practice, it's just misapplied. Not in every case as well. There are some companies that are pretty straight up with what their season pass has to offer. It's good value, and you're not necessarily being too kind of engaged with any anti-consumer stuff by getting it, because for the most part you're just supporting them and it's helping them out and you're satisfied, and that's great. But too often than not, I mean, what I can't remember what game. I think it was Evolve that there was like a leak, and the way that we found out about the game being announced was through a leak of the season pass, the details of that. And it's like, when we get to that level of a company already fucking planning a season pass before even announcing their game, like it doesn't even exist yet.
You conceive of the game and you have the discussion, when you sit down and talk about making this thing, like, how do we build it? What infrastructure do we need to
What's going to be in the season pass?
So that we can make this game over like 2 years after we release it. It's like...
Yeah.
I mean, this is the weird thing, because I'm a massive fan of Evolve. I'm just going to put my hand up now and say I played hundreds upon hundreds of hours of that game because I really, really liked it. But, I mean, with their backlash, it wasn't with the Season Pass. It was that they ended up just saying, we're making a DLC platform.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to give you this game, and we're going to make you pay for everything.
that was actually so, I guess, like, beautiful in a sense, because the blissful ignorance of how they kind of throw that phrase around. It's like, we're making a platform for DLC. It's like, you realize that's one of probably the worst ways to portray your game, especially in this space now where DLC it almost has a bit of a corrosive undertone in some sort of areas of the gaming community. And so, like, it's just not... It wasn't the smartest idea.
The funny thing, too, is they modeled their story. Like, the entire thing of Evolve, of like, hunting the monsters and stuff, you have, like, a campaign in that game. And the way the game ends is kind of like... It's partially cliffhanger, where basically they're surrounded by the monsters that are coming at them, but then it's kind of like, well, did they survive? Did they not? But then... because the game is just about going on hunts and like multiplayer matches in a way, it's like the story is continuing, but the story was developed as an open platform for DLC as well, because you're buying all these costumes and different monsters and stuff, and then that adds to the campaign of like, well, the story continues because it's an ongoing battle, it never ends. And so even that was a DLC kind of like open-ended thing too. So it was they already knew what they were doing from the get-go with that, and people didn't like it. You cannot be... I mean, they were really, what would you say, what's the word, kind of like confident that people were going to like it, and obviously it wasn't. And then why people or developers still sit behind it is just beyond me. I mean, you cannot make a game and expect to get away with it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, the season pass idea is like, again, it's like, it does kind of work, and I feel like the principle of it's certainly there. I mean, just it needs to be applied in different ways that kind of are more in favor of giving value and less about getting that early money and like kind of just counting it all and then running away. Because I feel like the majority of the time, it just doesn't really seem worth it. I mean, you brought up Destiny, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the Taken King a bit later. But if you go back to their previous 2 expansions, which is what the original Season Pass covers, the original Season Pass did not cover the Taken King, so you had to rebuy it. Oh, not rebuy it, sorry, but you had to buy the Taken King. If you were original adopter of the Season Pass covered the first expansion and the second expansion, and I feel like, I mean, maybe you could find maybe one person, but I feel like the majority of people would tell you those expansions were extremely lackluster. They for the most part... Yeah, for the most part, they did not expand on the game. They did not fix any real problems, and and one of them didn't even have a raid, in which it was kind of promised, or not promised, but it was certainly intimated they would both have raids, and that caused its own kind of subdrama.
It was more as well that they didn't even expand the story. Like with the Taken King adds a new planet, but with the other 2 DLCs, they kept everything. All the missions were just within the levels of the original game as well. So like if you were going to go do a bunch of the story missions in, I think it's called the Dark Below, you go through all the original environments that you already went through just to experience a bit of story. So it's like you didn't even bother to make new maps to experience this stuff. It's like, why?
At one point in the House of Wolves story, I believe they take you back to the tutorial level, and I'm like, I seriously had an epiphanic moment of, wow, like this is incredible. Like they went through every single other asset, and they're like, shit, what do we got? We got the tutorial. Load it up, Jimmy. put it in. Like, fuck it. I mean, Jesus
Which
Christ.
is completely like the opposite of say what CD Projekt are doing, where with this new DLC that you're getting, you actually like it even says right at the start in the trailer that he's going to a new land. This is somewhere
Yeah.
completely different, and so
Yeah,
you
only
already
one of
know.
them.
Well, this is going to be a different story.
One of the first expansion that's coming out, I believe, does not take you to a new land. It takes place in the main world. The second one
does
takes
it?
you to a new spot. Yeah.
Oh,
So
is it,
one of
wait a
them
minute,
does, one of
Oh
them
yeah,
doesn't.
the one that's like 20 hours, right? The
Yeah,
next
the
one.
the longer one is going to take you to a new place, and I believe it is whichever place is sort of supposed to represent like Southern European culture, France-ish
Hmm.
kind of thing in the as a fantasy analog. I forget the
Yeah.
name of it, but that's where you're going.
Mm.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, that's kind of like, it's just like, for the most part, there just needs to be more focus there, I think, with season passes, and it needs to be more, less of a marketing sort of advertising tool, especially now, with the incredibly just insane, I don't know if you guys have been following the Deus Ex pre-order
Oh, totally, dude.
ridiculousness.
And
But
I
it's
am like,
it's
that's my
stuff like
favorite
that.
game of all time too. So that really hit me
So
hard.
you'd be extremely sad because it's like, what is even going on there with the augment your pre-order? You have to not only do you not get all the content from pre-ordering, you have to pick you have to basically pick what content you're not getting through pre-ordering
Yeah.
the game. It's like that level of almost really just weird deceptive marketing. But then I have to think, who is that even working on? Like, I don't.
To be honest,
it's
this is
weird.
really, really bad, but it actually worked on me the first time
Oh,
because
Josh.
this is the really sad thing, and this is the thing. I'll never fall for this again now that I've experienced this. But like with Deus Ex, that was the game that got me into hardcore gaming. I put so much love and so much trust in that series, and it's not fair on the original creators because it was two complete different teams. But the first Deus Ex was fantastic, and then when they brought out Human Revolution, they did this kind of thing already, where you had the augmented edition, you had all these different DLC packs that you could buy. I kind of bought all of them. So what I ended up doing was because I love that series so much. I can actually turn around now and say I have an Adam Jensen action figure on my shelf. I bought the action figure. I bought the PC version. I bought the console version, collector's edition. And when the new remastered version came out, I bought both versions again. And now they're doing this. They're actually making it all from the get-go where you have to try and pay just to get every extra little bit.
I think they know
I'm
where
not
you
doing
live.
that again.
I think they're doing it for you, bro. Like, we're gonna get Josh. He's gonna do it.
all of that. But it's like they haven't learned their lesson in a way. People already said when that stuff came out, "Why are you doing this?" But now they're making it worse by making you pay more. It's like Kickstarter. You're Kickstartering pre-ordering. How does that even work? It's stupid. It's
Yeah.
literally milestone goals to pre-order stuff. But
Yeah.
you should just put everything in the package or separate the packages like they did originally, even though people don't like it. So you have, say, your steel case version, or then have your ultimate version, say, like with what Borderlands did, where you got like your little bobblehead and you got your case, and then you got your game and your maps and your poster, and have like your ultimate thing where everyone gets all of it. Or
Oh, wait, don't forget your collector's art book or whatever the fuck.
yeah, just all that stupid. Do you remember? Wasn't it Destiny as well, which did the recent where you got like a strange coin? What are you gonna
Yeah.
do with that? Is it
Yeah.
a cup holster?
Cherish it.
It
Just
vibrates.
cherish it.
Oh, Josh,
Vibrates, oh my
it
goodness.
gently vibrates
Put
in
it
your
on
hand.
a chain around your neck. I mean, as a developer, you could just say that, like,
no.
hey,
Yeah.
the publisher's not giving us enough money to make the game, so you gotta
'Cause
pump it up.
that'll certainly, if you play Destiny a lot and you're looking to up your style and your fashion,
Yeah.
strap on a $2.50 fake coin around your neck and
Yeah.
walk outside and
Walk
really feel that strut in your legs, because
Yeah.
that's, you earned that. You deserve that.
remember
Listen,
when they did as well?
we
You are the
Yeah.
nerd king, my friend. You have the Destiny coin.
Do you remember when they did? I think it was Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, where you could get it's kind of the same thing where you had your steel case edition, but then you also had your Batarang edition. And the Batarang edition, everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, I get to have a real Batarang!" I fell for that. I fell for that. It was a piece of plastic stuck on a set on like a little plastic stand as well, and they'd actually someone in that manufacturing facility where they actually built all these Batarangs took to make it look like it was authentic. They actually got like a pin or something and scratched into it, and so that was how poor quality that was. And getting that and
Nice.
going, I paid £60 for this, and it's like that same thing. What am I gonna do with this? I got not. I can't do anything with it.
You can't
Put it on
throw
my
it at
shelf.
anybody. Like,
Yeah. It's got this
I
heavy ass
mean,
stand
you
stuck to its
could.
ass. You
Yeah.
could, but it's not gonna be legit.
Yeah,
it's not gonna
exactly.
come back to you. It's gonna go away, and then you're gonna go away for a long time.
It kind of shows this trend though now as well of like say with season passes and everything like that where now we are seeing this kind of like Kickstarter thing like with microtransactions you had this thing where they were kind of copying mobile stuff so it was like oh mobiles
Yep.
are doing this like whole nickel and diming thing maybe we could do that too where you got to pay to like improve your progress faster and stuff like Phantom Pain but now we're seeing with like Deus Ex as well now where it's like they're now copying this Kickstarter style. I mean, what's going to happen
Yeah.
next? I'm not looking
Mm.
forward to it. You'd think they'll be trying to improve these things by now, but it's actually getting worse.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, in entertainment, this is the biggest industry in the world, and it keeps getting bigger. And I think the bigger it gets,
Based on lies! Lies!
yeah, based on lies. It's like it's not like when you start making more money, people suddenly become satisfied. It's a disease. They want to make even more. So,
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, especially in the case of as you said, the whole application of the Kickstarter model there. It's certainly interesting because yeah, it's like, I mean, that's taking the cake in terms of like how egregious it is, like, and it's kind of it really emphasized how ridiculous pre-order culture has actually become in the
Yeah.
games industry anyway. But yeah, no, I think that's certainly an interesting point because it's like in terms of where do we go from here? Because there just seems to be more and more focus on and again I wouldn't even say this is a necessarily like I'm not going to sit here and be ignorant of the fact that this is actually just how things work
Yeah.
but yeah there definitely is more of a focus on creating consumer devotion, not necessarily trying to create a sense of loyalty through being genuine. I think that's the key difference there, and that's why we can sit here and applaud CD Projekt Red and simultaneously look at what Deus Ex is doing and being like, "What the fuck?" Like, because there's a clear difference between a deception of value and a realism, like actual value. Like, fucking,
right.
like if you live in reality, right? I mean, so it's just about kind of, I guess, finding that and I guess calling people out when they try to do this sort of stuff. And I mean, it's not like we don't. There's certainly a number of pretty prominent figures out there doing it. Jim Sterling and Total Biscuit. Pretty big guys being like
But
shifting the focus whenever this
Yeah.
kind of happens.
you
But
can't
for
you
the most
can't
part,
really defeat companies by doing that now, though. I
no,
mean, like
I don't think you
it's
can
not
either. Yeah.
one voice can't do it, and there's this whole thing where people go, "Oh, maybe we should boycott the game." There is no way that you're ever going to be able to boycott a game because there are enough stupid people out there that are going to buy it anyway. And
Oh
so,
yeah,
how do you
like
punish?
people
How do
vote
you
with their
punish these
wallets.
developers?
You
Yeah.
don't
So, but
because
it's like,
people buy it. Yeah.
so does that mean that it'll never change? Does that mean we're going to be screwed now, and that all this stuff that we used to get, and say like with PlayStation 2 and stuff, obviously games are more expensive, but
Yeah,
are they?
it
Are we
means
just
there's
going
going
to
to be a
always be taken
variance in the
advantage of?
industry. Yeah, I mean, yeah, some people are always going to be taken advantage of. Welcome to the world. Um, and some people are going to be smarter, and we just are going to have a variance. Like we're going to have hopefully we're going to have our CD Projekt Reds, and we're going to have our EAs, and we're just going to have that tug of war going on in the industry for a long, long, long time till the sun blows up and nobody plays video games anymore.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've kind of learnt now as well is that because even though they're putting all this DLC out, they are bringing out the uber awesome collector's editions like a year afterwards. So it
Mhm.
seems now the best thing to do is to not even buy the game, just wait until they bring
Oh,
out
wait.
everything all
Yeah.
together in
Yeah.
one package.
I'm a
Yep.
big fan of waiting. Like I had the one game I've pre-ordered in like the last couple years was The Witcher, but I'm not a fan of doing that. Like I'll just
Yeah, that's how. I mean, that's in today's kind of landscape. I mean, that's how you be a smart consumer. There's legit like. I mean, I've had a discussion a lot of times with a lot of people, and I still have not been convinced that there's a single positive reason to ever pre-order a game. Not today anyway. With the whole digital marketplace, it's not like you're reserving a copy. Like you can just buy it online. It doesn't. And if you want to get it at your local game store. the whole idea of pre-ordering is that they know how much of a surplus they need in addition to the stock that's going to be there anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like I've not heard a single actual argument to that actually promotes pre-order culture as a pro-consumer activity, because it's simply just intrinsically not, especially in the state that it's in.
Right.
So it's like you really got to think about it in that sense. I feel like it's just it's in its own little territory right now.
Right. There's some like Steam likes to incentivize pre-orders by giving it to you for a couple bucks off. Like they'll be like until it's it's $60 when it's actually released, but you can get it right now for 55. And it's like, meh. If you're really sure about the game, that might be tempting, because you're like take The Witcher 3. You're pretty sure it's going to be good. If I can get it for 55, I actually pre-ordered that game for like $36. I found it somewhere.
I got it for £15 a year before it came out.
Yeah, and it was like I saw that online. I was like, okay, I got $30, whatever. Like that's easy to part with. It's probably gonna be good. But yeah, generally speaking, I agree with you, Jay. There's just not a lot of reasons to put the money down.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to save your money and be smart, that is. I mean, like again, if like, and this is when people get, I think, a little bit offended, and we have gone a bit off topic, but I'll just say before we round it out and move on that like people, when this debate comes up, that you do have a lot of people that get really upset about, like they're like, you won't die, it's my money, you can't tell me what to do, it's my money.
No, we
can't.
Okay,
it's sure it is, but like the reasons why you're satisfied with your pre-orders, I mean, that is a very subjective thing. But when we're having a debate about how does it impact the games industry and overall the consumer empowerment there, I mean, I find it very hard pressed to come up with a lot of points in opposition. You know what I mean?
You can spend your money however you want, and we can have varying opinions on your level of intelligence. Like that's it's a free world.
I mean, like ideally, I mean, there you go. All right, I think that's probably a good point to move on. We want to talk about Blizzard storytelling, guys, because it was a Legacy of the Void cinematics just dropped, and of course it was magnificent as always.
As
Blizzard
always,
cinematics, they're just astounding. Oh, well, okay, hold on.
All right, here we go.
We got some opinions. Josh,
that's good.
why was it
that
amazing?
we have opinions.
I mean, this is something because I'm going to be honest, I haven't played any of the original StarCrafts. Please don't judge me. But I fell in love when I'm sorry. When Wings of Liberty came out, I loved it. I bought a PC just to play it because I loved that idea. You know, when it showed Tychus Finley come out, he's like, "It's about damn time," and stuff like that. And he showed his awesome suit of armor, and so I was like, "I am playing this. I want to be this dude." But then, I mean, because they're kind of bringing out like an expansion for each kind of race, which is cool. I mean, I like that they're kind of doing that whole focused thing. But I kind of just wanted to play about with the Terran and stuff. I wanted to know the rest of the story, and I'm just not that invested in the Protoss. I was kind of like, when I was watching, I was like, they just look like a bunch of elves dressed in gold.
Yeah, they're the Yoda Jedis of that universe. They're definitely that the mysticism kind of thing.
Which just doesn't get you going.
Yeah, no,
like,
Raynor,
they did
he's
that
gonna
whole
be
thing.
in it.
Oh, sure, but I mean, like, there was that whole thing where when you were following his story in the first one, they did those little bits where, like, the story would branch a little bit and have a bit of an outcome, and you thought, oh, this is somehow going to affect us in the future, like when I get the next expansion, the next one. But they've ended up, I kind of just wanted to play with the Terran story. I wanted to find out more about Raynor and his crew and everything that was going on with their plight and stuff, but now they've just been locked off, and we'll never hear more about them again. It's now about...
Did you play Heart of the Swarm?
Oh yeah, well, I bought it. I didn't finish it. I only played half of it. So I was kind of like, I want
it
Raynor.
definitely
That was
wasn't
the
as
thing.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, from a both gameplay perspective and story perspective, I certainly don't think it was as good as Wings of Liberty. Wings of Liberty really had a lot of great missions, and the story was just pretty good.
It was pretty fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of like the crux of this topic. I mean, it's funny because I mostly play Blizzard games for multiplayer, but I still find myself inexplicably attached to the story and what's going on to some extent, especially in the Warcraft days. I mean, I definitely have probably 20 times more hours in that game playing custom games in Warcraft 3 because that was the shit. But I bet your ass I played the whole campaign because it's like there's so much rich story that like they really captured something unique in the way that they did that there. And I think that's kind of what you were saying, Ian, right?
Yeah, Blizzard for me has always been about single player, and I know that's weird because for so many people, it's the multiplayer aspect of their games that really draws you in.
I think especially now, yeah.
Especially now with the MMO and the way that StarCraft is built
Mm.
for competitive play. But they really have nailed that. Like you look at their cinematics and you just think like, why aren't these people making movies? They clearly like to put these
Yeah.
scenes together, and they do such a good job. And the way that they flesh out their characters through the cinematics and then into the gameplay a little bit when you're doing the RTS side of things, I talk about Blizzard as like almost like a Disney of gaming, a little bit more adult, a little bit more dark, but they're very colorful and fanciful and like kind of flamboyant in the way that they tell their stories. It's very melodramatic, like all of it. It's turned up to 10 all the time. Like everything is always at stake. It's always they're always really high stakes, like do we sell our souls or not? Like when the last Warcraft expansion came out. And it's just it's dripping with that fantasy drama no matter what. And that's what I love about it, I think. That's always been what draws me to it because it's somewhere where you can really get your fix for just
It
over the
makes me
top fantasy.
it makes me really just want to watch their games rather than play
Yeah.
those. Like
Yeah.
with Diablo 3, once I ended up like seeing the first cutscene, I literally was just playing to see the next one because I wanted to see that
Exactly.
awesome detail. And it was the same with say like Overwatch when that awesome reveal trailer came out. And it's just like I would much prefer just to watch these people kill each other than actually do it myself because the animation was just so good. And it's the
Yeah.
same again with StarCraft because the cutscenes were so good and the
Yeah.
story actually
Yeah.
they did it so cinematically like it was this like awesome movie. And then you go back into the game and the little miniature little 3D men and they don't look as good. It's like I want the cutscenes, and it is kind of like that with what's the new expansion called? I forgot what it's called.
Legacy of the Void.
Legacy of the Void. Yeah.
Legacy, yeah. And so it was like I kind of even though I don't really am not that interested in that story, I can still relate to how it was quite cool, and I would just like to watch it.
Yeah, like
Can't they
I've
just make
watched
a movie of the games?
seriously. I watched that cinematic a few times now. I watched it just before the podcast went live, and
Yeah.
it's like, man, these badasses, like these
Yeah.
celestial beings. And I would go see that movie. That's why I'm kind of like I'm kind of excited for the Warcraft movie because if they manage
yeah.
to capture some of that essence, and they've got really good people working on it, Industrial Light and Magic and Weta and all these people. So yeah, it could be really fun to see it translated to the big screen.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, like that's it for me as well. It's like, and it's funny, yeah, because I think I talk about some of my buds from time to time because it's like they are really into the story. It's like they dig it so hard. For me, it is multiplayer still takes preference. I mean, like for StarCraft 2, I played that shit so much I got into like did you guys play the multiplayer at all?
Nah, not
Oh, yeah,
really.
well, I kind of got like pressured out of it because people were so good at it, and I was like really, really bad. Like it was all
Yeah,
about APM,
I
right?
was
You
one
had
of
to like
those.
press your
I was
keyboard
one
as
of those
fast as possible.
guys. Yeah, I got
You
to
killed it for me. Thanks a lot.
Grandmaster or whatever, which is like
Aw.
the top 200 of the region.
Nice.
So I played the shit out of some
It's kind of
StarCraft,
dead
man.
though now, isn't it? Like
Oh, it's dead as
I remember
shit.
trying
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I tried to get back into it, and I was like, I was like bronze league, I think. Oh, well, originally I got into silver, but then I started out brand new in like bronze, and then I was put against like a diamond, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just quit now.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
didn't even-
that's
I died
actually
in
why I
like 2
stopped.
minutes.
That's actually why I had to stop because, especially in the Southeast Asia region for Australia, I would be
Yeah.
in Grandmaster and legit I had matched against like, granted, in the hours of like 3 a.m. in the morning, I would match against like bronze or not bronze. I don't think I ever got that bad, but like gold league players, and I was like, huh, bit weird. Maybe this game might not go too well for you. I'm not really sure. And they'd just be like, okay, and I'm like, yeah, all right. So yeah, but no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, like in the era where Blizzard is maybe known by a lot of people for Hearthstone because that's just such a huge game, they still find such a unique and in spellbinding way to tell their stories in genres that really don't make sense, and really they shouldn't be able to do, and they just kind of do it so nicely. I think especially WoW was the one for me where it was just like like MMOs really before then didn't. I mean, they had stories, but I mean, I don't think anyone's ever cared about them to the degree that WoW has just encapsulated this audience that of diehard fans for the last 10 years, right? I mean, even with Warlords of Draenor, I think WoW the last I was looking up on it, it was facing its worst player base for a long time. But even when Warlords of Draenor came out, it got a massive shot in the arm, like, and I think it got like record numbers again. And I feel like next expansion it'll
Same
probably
thing.
happen again.
Yeah, it'll
exactly,
happen again.
yeah.
And
Because
I think that's
people are
that's
there.
that thing
Yeah.
though of people just wanting to play the brand new content and not have to keep doing the dungeons over and over and over and over and over. People just don't have that time anymore, right? Like that
Yeah.
is that what you do? Like I only played this is the thing, I only played like World of Warcraft like the first 10 minutes where I made like an undead character and then this quest was find me 5 boots. And I was like, okay.
No, sorry.
What about the 6th boot? Like, do you want the 6th? Am I keeping the 6th boot? Where is the 6th boot? Then I just turned it off because I was like, I don't want to find your 5 boots. I want to become this legendary hero. But then there's this whole thing with like the raiding, as I was just talking about before, and it's like, is that all you do after you've completed the main content? Is it kind of like Destiny where you just keep doing the strike or the raid like over and over and
you
over?
get together with your buddies and it's hard, and then you get the sense of satisfaction for working together and accomplishing something.
Yeah. So that's what we're seeing now, is that with all these expansions, and then the subscriber base comes back, they play all that awesome stuff, but then they kind of like, well, I'm done now. Give me the next good bit. I'll come back when you do it. See ya.
Yeah.
They cancel the subscription again.
Because there's a lot of other games to be playing. You can go play anything these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, there you go. So I guess we'll round it out. You guys getting Legacy of the Void? Is it on the menu?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, for me, I anytime Blizzard comes out with something like that, I'm like, oh, great! I get to play single player Blizzard content, so I'm probably gonna get it. Yeah.
I hope they change it up though, like with Wings of Liberty. There was that whole thing where you had it's like a battle cruise that you had that you flew around in, but then you had to go to different rooms, talk to different people, and then upgrade your stuff, and then you go do missions. But then you did the exact same thing in the next one, and so you were just kind of like that little hub, and you just talk to people, then go do your mission, and then you come back, and that was it. So it'd be good if they, because with the first one they kind of it felt exciting. It wasn't just like with a standard RTS where you went to the next story thing and then that was it, then you would go play your multiplayer skirmish. It had that feeling of branching like story paths and stuff like that. The second one didn't feel like it did, so it'd be cool if maybe they did something fresh and new. Maybe that's what would kind of interest me maybe a bit more, if it wasn't just a copy and paste of the last 2 expansions, but with Protoss on top.
I think they certainly need to evaluate where Heart of the Swarm was, because I feel like Wings of Liberty was certainly something unique, and they captured something there. But what they did in Heart of the Swarm, they kind of, I mean, for those who haven't played it, they kind of, they made Kerrigan this like MOBA champion, and you would play as her instead of this idea that you're a commander. It's a RTS, or at least it's supposed to be. And so and I feel like in taking a different angle for that expansion, the story was great. I think it was competent enough, but in taking that different angle, you lost the I guess empowerment and the glorification of you as this amazing like strategist that like could be thrown into these compelling scenarios. The one that comes to mind, the last mission of Wings of Liberty, like, oh my god, like that was just like
that was nuts.
So intense. Like it's like you have a very, very specific task to like guard this like artifact thing, and then
I remember that.
You had this decision making between you had to get the artifact charged to 100%, but if you start to get overrun, you could spend like 10% to blow everything up. Like there was so much like stuff going on there, and I feel like that was a key component of Wings of Liberty that was sorely missed in Heart of the Swarm. So I feel like Legacy of the Void definitely needs to do something a little bit new to give the players that have been there for the past 2 games the feeling of novelty, but not
Can
so
we
new.
flesh it out, make it like a game? I want it to be
Exactly.
bigger, better, all that.
Yeah.
Can we talk about story
not too out
spoilers?
there. Sure, man. Yeah, go ahead. Spoilers for Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, so I mean, one thing that I really liked about the first one was that whole thing that Rhaena's goal was to cure Kerrigan of, what was she called? What was her original name?
The Queen of Blades.
Sarah Bites. Yeah.
Oh, Sarah, yeah.
So like, Sarah Kerrigan, that was it. So like curing her from being the Queen of Blades, and it was that whole thing where you feel invested to be part of his quest because he was so passionate. It was his love of his life, and he had to
Sure,
watch
yeah.
her like be left behind, get turned into this horrible monster where she was brainwashed and all that kind of crap. But then at the end, he accomplishes it. He actually gets to walk off into the sunset of her. And then I remember, I think this may be the main reason why I just felt a little bit empty with the second game was because the first thing that happens is she ends up receding back into the Queen of
Yeah.
Blades.
All your
and then,
hard work
and then Raina's
goes out the
like,
window.
I just went through all this shit and you're throwing it away.
Yeah.
And he hates it.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
I was kind of, I felt like what Raina was feeling. I was like, I don't really want to follow what you're going to do now because you just kind of, it's like what just happened doesn't even matter. All those people died to save you and you're just going to go back and do whatever. And
He
now
killed
with
his
this
best
one,
buddy as well.
well, I mean, it was kind of like I remember when there was that whole thing where did he like not kill him? Did he, did he? And he obviously did.
He
But I was
definitely
so
killed
hoping,
him. Yeah.
He
I
killed
was hoping
him.
it was gonna be one of those things where like he revolvered like Tychus's little bomb on his helmet or something and maybe saved his life. And that'd been really badass. But obviously that didn't happen.
Right.
I love Tychus. I thought he was amazing. He's my favorite character in Hearthstone as well. Is it Hearthstone? Heroes of the Storm.
Heroes of the
He's
Storm,
like
yeah.
amazing.
Heroes
Yeah. But so what we've seen as well is because I don't know, you might be able to explain this a bit better for me. Is that at the end of oh my goodness, all these different names. Heart of the
Heart of the
Swarm.
Swarm?
She ends up like taking control of the Zerg and going, okay, we're gonna do good. I'm gonna fight this major evil and fly off
Yeah.
and be all nice and stuff. But then in the third one, it seems that the Zerg have like, it's like, is that just gone again? Is it
Yeah,
just like
They're-
wash it
they're
all away?
Hell bent on destroying the Protoss or something. Yeah.
Well, there's also kind of like rogue Zerg as well. It's like there's Zerg
Okay.
that are under her command, but there's also this kind of like idea of like sub-indigenous Zerg communities that are like alienated. Basically, I mean, what the premise is that's kind of been culminating in these first two expansions is that we have these three different institutions of like races and stuff fighting internally, but we keep getting this hint that there's this way fucking bigger threat that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
and-
with the end of Wings of Liberty, we kind of got the resolution between characters, and with the end of Heart of the Swarm, we kind of got this resolution that Kerrigan had finally fulfilled her revenge kind of subplot. Now she's like, all right, now let's think of the bigger picture here. Like
Yeah.
That's the
let's.
thing.
And they're very
Yeah.
into the
Doing that
storybook
thing again.
ending. Yeah, and it's like, it might turn out that Rayner and Kerrigan and all the people who you're on their side, they're going to unite. The Protoss, all those people, they're going to unite against whatever this massive evil is. Blizzard's very into delivering that storybook kind of closure for people. So I hope that they pull it off. But
It's that thing again of like every single ending to the game is, well, now that story might continue. So like when Kerrigan flies off into space, you're like, okay, awesome, we're gonna play some more Kerrigan, and we're not. We're just gonna play Protoss. It's like, but what about that bit that just happened at the end? I want to continue, and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So like you've got your devoted Zerg players, you've got your devoted Protoss, you've got your devoted Terran. I want more Terran. I don't want to play Space Elves. I want to be Space Marines. I want to shoot stuff up. Give me it.
too bad.
Okay. It's okay, Josh.
Aw.
We'll give you a corner to cry in. It's fine. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Singularity podcast for today. But before we leave you, we have some general kind of shout out / plugging to do. Some cheeky, quick, fast plugging, of course.
Quick and dirty.
Josh, can you kick us off? What you got coming? What's going on?
Well, I'm going to be having some Taken King awesomeness coming out on the Only SP channel, which is basically just a first look of that. We're also going to have a few more little games popping up as well, like, say, some classic PlayStation 3. So kind of like a first look at some really cool games you may have missed out on in the past. So we're going to be doing, I don't even know what we're going to call them yet, like a game spotlight or something, but
Single-player
working on those.
spotlight.
Is that what we're calling it? Oh, I didn't even...
We should. Dude, that's such a sick name. We should totally call it
We should
that.
do that.
Single-player
Single player
spotlight.
spotlight. There we go.
Is that the one where
I
we're
believe that
sitting around with two or three people or and talking about a game? Is that the thing?
Oh, that's different. I think that's just a
Okay,
game
okay.
discussion.
All right.
But
all right.
I think the first one that I'm going to be doing is Vanquish. So if you've never played Vanquish before, come check out some awesome gameplay and commentary on that. Stay tuned.
Right. Cool.
Dank. Ian, what's going on, man? Where can people follow you?
Yeah, Twitter handle's on the screen. You can follow me there. I don't really post a lot, but I'm working on it. Witcher episode's going up this week, and then I'm gonna be
Come on,
moving on.
dude, I need my fix.
Yeah,
Hurry
I
up.
know, I know. And then I'm gonna be moving on to some smaller projects. I want to. I think, yeah, it's gonna be shorter videos, more condensed, but probably more frequent. Hopefully, more frequent.
Nice, nice, nice. And my Twitter's on the screen as well. JZeke with 2 Y's because some fucker stole one way. It's fine. Listen. I'm not mad. It's fine. Go follow me on Twitter for all my updates and all that good stuff. You can follow me on my personal YouTube as well for all the other side little things I do. So yeah, go check that out. And in terms of the only single player stuff, yep, we got some. It's a bit sporadic right now. We're in a bit of a state of working
Reshuffling.
out
A lull.
yeah, exactly. What we're working at a consistent basis. This show will, for the most part, always be consistent. I hope so. You can still rely on a podcast a week. But the editorials are still coming out in a different kind of format, but you'll see a bit later on. And hopefully they'll be coming out a bit more regularly. But stay tuned for that, and then we shall see from then on. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to today's podcast. Thank you for Ian and Josh for coming along once again for this
Thank you,
magnificent
good sir,
ride.
for hosting.
Oh, thank you. I tip my fedora. And we'll see you next week.
We miss you.